Toni Braxton had everything people associate with success. The voice, the fame, the Grammy Awards, millions of records sold around the world. But behind the glamorous dresses, sold-out performances, and chart-topping songs, something wasn't right. Because while Toni Braxton was helping generate millions of dollars in record sales, she was heading toward bankruptcy. And that wasn't the only battle waiting for her. A troubled recording contract, serious health problems, a marriage that eventually ended in divorce. Bankruptcy again. So how did one of the biggest R&B singers of the 1990s end up here? And more importantly, how did she manage to keep coming back? This is the untold story of Toni Braxton. Welcome to Sophia Untold Stories. Before the bankruptcies, before the headlines, and long before the world knew the name Toni Braxton, there was a young girl growing up in a deeply religious home in Maryland. Toni was the oldest of 6 children. Her father was a minister, and the Braxton children were raised under strict religious rules. Music was already part of their lives, but much of that music came from the church. Toni and her sisters would sing together, developing the harmonies that would eventually lead them toward the music industry. But Toni didn't originally set out to become an international superstar. In fact, she enrolled at Bowie State University intending to become a teacher. Then something happened that changed the direction of her life. According to the story Toni has told over the years, she was singing to herself while pumping gas when songwriter William Petaway Jr. heard her voice. That chance encounter helped move Toni closer to the music business. Eventually, Toni and her sisters, Tracy, Tawanda, Trina, and Tamer, formed a group called the Braxtons. In 1990, they released their first single, Good Life. The song didn't become a major hit, but sometimes the thing that looks like a failure is actually the beginning of something much bigger. Because even though the Braxtons didn't become stars from that record, someone had noticed Toni. And soon, 2 names that would become incredibly important to her career entered the picture: L.A. Reid and Babyface. They heard something in Toni's voice, something different, something powerful. And before long, Toni Braxton was stepping out from the group and toward a solo career that would change her life forever. At first, Toni wasn't necessarily supposed to become a solo superstar. But when an opportunity came for her to record a song for the soundtrack of the Eddie Murphy movie, Boomerang, Toni stepped forward. She recorded Love Should Have Brought You Home. And suddenly, people wanted to know, who is that woman with that deep, unmistakable voice? The opportunity helped introduce Toni Braxton as a solo artist. And in 1993, she released her debut album, Toni Braxton. This was the moment everything changed. Another sad love song became a hit. Then came Breathe Again. The album sold millions of copies. And Toni wasn't simply becoming successful. She also won Best Female R&B Vocal Performance for another sad love song. And the following year, she won that R&B Vocal Award again, this time for Breathe Again. In just a few years, Toni Braxton had gone from singing with her sisters to standing on some of the biggest stages in music. But Toni's biggest song was still ahead of her. In 1996, she released her second album, Secrets, and on that album was a song that would change her career forever, Unbreak My Heart. The song became a worldwide phenomenon. It spent weeks at #1 in the United States and became one of the defining songs of Toni Braxton's career. More Grammy Awards followed. More records were sold. More money was being generated. From the outside, Toni Braxton appeared to have everything: fame, success, awards. Millions of records sold, but behind all of that success, a financial problem was growing, and Toni was about to discover something that many fans never realized. Selling millions of records doesn't necessarily mean the artist is receiving millions of dollars. And by the end of the 1990s, that reality was about to become very public. In 1994, Toni won Best New Artist, and that's when Toni Braxton's story took a turn that almost nobody expected. By 1997, Toni was one of the biggest names in music. Millions of records had been sold. She had Grammy Awards. She had hit songs playing around the world. But according to Toni, the money she was actually receiving told a very different story. In December 1997, Toni filed a lawsuit against LaFace Records and its parent company, Arista Records. She wanted out of her recording contract. And just weeks later, in January 1998, Toni Braxton filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy. The news shocked fans. How could someone this successful be bankrupt? According to the Los Angeles Times, Toni's representatives said her music had generated an estimated $188 million in sales over approximately 6 years. But they claimed that Toni was receiving less than 35 cents per album under her recording agreement. Just think about that. Millions of records being sold, hundreds of millions of dollars reportedly being generated, and the woman whose name and voice were on those records was filing for bankruptcy. But years later, Toni would explain that there was more to the story. In a 2012 interview with ABC News, she spoke openly about what was happening financially behind the scenes, and she also admitted that the record contract wasn't the only problem. But Toni Braxton's story didn't end with bankruptcy, divorce, or even her comeback. Years later, love entered her life again. Toni had known rapper and music executive Birdman for more than 2 decades before their friendship eventually became romantic. They began dating publicly in 2016 and announced their engagement in 2018. But just like so many other parts of Toni's life, their relationship wasn't exactly straightforward. There were breakups, reconciliations, questions about whether they were still together. And then came a secret almost nobody knew about. On August 8, 2024, Toni Braxton and Birdman quietly got married. But only days after the wedding, their marriage appeared to be in serious trouble. Toni later filed for divorce, listing their date of separation as August 10th, just 2 days after they were married. It looked like another relationship in Toni's life was coming to an end, except it didn't. The divorce petition was eventually dismissed. And now, 2 years after that secret wedding, Toni has surprised fans again. In August 2026, Toni celebrated her second wedding anniversary with Birdman, Sophia, sharing rare photographs from their wedding day and describing the past 2 years as 2 years of bliss. After everything Toni Braxton has lived through, extraordinary fame, 2 bankruptcies, serious health struggles, divorce, career setbacks, and moments when she nearly walked away from music, she is still here, still performing, still telling her story, and apparently, still capable of surprising everyone. Maybe that is the real Toni Braxton story. Not that she fell, but that every time life seemed to knock her down, Toni Braxton found another way to get back up. Add this to the new. Just give a brief information regarding the new development. Add them together so that I can end this.
7 Grammys, 70 million records. But did Toni Braxton trade chart-topping glory for heartbreak behind the scenes? From a high-profile marriage that ended after 12 years to raising 2 sons while battling lupus, her voice stayed flawless, but her love story didn't. Now, with new moves stirring headlines, has Toni finally found peace? Or is another twist about to rewrite her legacy?
She was so freaking mean to me. I was in shock.
Do you take responsibility for the situation that you're in right now?
100%.
100%.
100%. I couldn't believe it because I loved her so much. I admired her and looked up to her. And she pretty much reprimanded me.
I read that you were upset about stories that your overspending caused this.
She says to me, I hear you have Gucci flatware. I'm Oprah Winfrey and I don't have Gucci flatware.
First of all, I didn't know Gucci made silverware.
You ain't got Gucci flatware because you didn't want to buy it. It's not because you couldn't afford it. What do you mean? And immediately, she made me feel this big. This big. That moment completely changed my career. It made people look down on me.
Toni's explanation revealed something many fans didn't understand at the time. She later admitted that some of her own spending habits contributed to her financial problems as well. Still, bankruptcy wasn't going to be the end of Toni Braxton, and began rebuilding her career. And soon, Toni would prove that she could still make a hit. During the interview, Oprah questioned Toni about her spending habits. Let's take a look at that conversation between Toni Braxton.
She was so freaking mean to me. I was in shock.
Do you take responsibility for the situation that you're in right now?
100%.
100%.
100%. I couldn't believe it because I loved her so much. I admired her and looked up to her. And she pretty much reprimanded me.
I read that you were upset about stories that your overspending caused this.
She says to me, I hear you have Gucci flatware. I'm Oprah Winfrey and I don't have Gucci flatware.
First of all, I didn't know Gucci made silverware.
You ain't got Gucci flatware because you didn't want to buy it. It's not because you couldn't afford it. What do you mean? And immediately, she made me feel this big. This big. That moment completely changed my career. It made people look down on me.
After everything Toni Braxton has lived through extraordinary fame, financial struggles, 2 bankruptcies, serious health challenges, divorce, and career setbacks, she is still standing. Her journey has been filled with incredible highs and painful lows. But perhaps Toni Braxton's story was never really about how many times she fell. It was about how many times she got back up. More than 3 decades after the world first heard that unmistakable voice, Toni Braxton is still here, still performing, still loved by millions, and still writing the next chapter of her story. This is the untold story of Toni Braxton. Thank you for watching Sophia Untold Stories. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe and join us as we uncover the stories behind the people you thought you knew. Until next time.